My new book, Pillars for Life, A Guide to Spiritual Ethics and Practice, is now out and available for you to read and purchase. You can check out our website, willowhealing.org, to find a link, or you can find it on Amazon. We look forward to getting your feedback, and if you love it, please leave a review and share with your friends. Now it's time for the show. Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul. It's Catherine Crestani with another episode of Willow Healing Matters, and today I'm joined by Cristiano Colla. So he is a writer, poet, and a receiver of truth. I love that. He was once a personal trainer chasing superficiality until ayahuasca cracked him open and showed him the beauty of his creative self. Since then, he's been walking the path of authenticity, sharing stories that awaken, heal, and inspire. He writes and speaks about transformation, integration, and the messy magic of being human. Whether through his jungle experience, mundane life, or humor, he speaks to those who are ready to surrender to their gifted souls. So a big welcome to the show, Cristiano.
Thank you so much, Catherine. What an introduction.
I know, you wrote it. Look at that.
That's right. I forgot about that.
It wasn't me, but these days it was funny. I was using AI the other day because I had to shrink my bio to fit a certain character length. And I was like, hey, Can you make my bio? Here it is. And can you make it like 700 characters? He's like, yeah, no, I call mine Kev. Okay, no worries. Let's go. And then sure enough, this bio came out and I was like, wow, that was better than what I gave you. Thank you.
It's not the hardest thing to do to shorten your bio.
I know, especially because you're like, what do I keep? What do I let go?
Yeah.
It can be really hard. And so often we're so used to having to put ourselves in boxes, right? When we don't really fit in boxes.
Yeah. But it's actually interesting because you get to pick the right and accurate words to describe yourself. So it's, I think it's inner work.
Exactly. It is. And it's really learning to hone your story, and you're really good at it when you can share it and you're not triggered anymore, right?
Yeah. That's
sad. So I guess to start with your unpacking your bio a bit more, what led you to ayahuasca in the first place, seeing as you were in the personal training industry? And then was it just curiosity, or what kind of led you there?
Yeah, I would say more than curiosity. I'm a curious human being, but I was, I had a feeling of brokenness. I felt there was something was wrong with me, like deep inside me. And I used to go to psychologists and do therapy, and that couldn't do it for me because, I would go there, spend an hour talking about stuff and without really getting to the core of the issue that I was trying to solve. And someone else was giving me, the same question over and over, like whatever I said, I was met with, oh, how does that make you feel? Like 100 of times, which I don't process things like that. And by just speaking, it doesn't help me. So I knew that wouldn't work long term for me. So I tried hypnotherapy instead. And that did something for the first couple of months. So I saw some shifts and I break through some stuff. I connected with my inner child by going through hypnotherapy. And that was powerful. But after a couple of months, I fell back into the same old patterns and behaviors. And at the time, I was reading a book about society and childhood traumas. And the author Gabor Mate was explaining about his experience with ayahuasca and psychedelics in general, and that inspired me to take action. So I researched about ayahuasca. Eventually, got in touch with a temple in Peru, and I booked the flight.
And then there you are. In Peru, doing ayahuasca.
Yeah, correct.
I love that. It was curiosity and you went down the rabbit hole. Well, it was more than that. There was a lot of events that led you to that point, but it's still really powerful when you take all those steps and then all of a sudden it aligns so beautifully like that.
I just let myself be taken away by the current back then.
Yeah. And was your experience with ayahuasca, was it really profound, or did you have to do it a few times? I've had very mixed. People have had someone had nothing happen. What was kind of like that first experience like?
It was life-changing. for me. We did it because I went by myself, but we had a group of 25 people. So it was a social setting, but also individual setting at the same time. We did 6 ceremonies of ayahuasca within 12 days. So I drank the medicine, that's what they call it, 6 times every second day. And every time it was different. It was like seeing a different movie for 6 times. But the thing is that I had different intentions before each ceremony. So I was prepared for each of one. But at the same time, I let the experience unfold from the first ceremony. So on my very first ceremony, I went in with the most powerful intention I had. And that led me to develop all the other intentions for the following one. And then when I finished the retreat, I traveled 2 weeks just to let the experience sink. And when I came back to real life, that's what I noticed the most substantial shift in the way I perceived myself, the environment, people around me, society, and all the issue that kept me stuck, that I couldn't see just by doing therapy.
Yeah, and it's definitely like that perception shift. And I know a lot of people I've spoken to about ayahuasca is that it's that subconscious tap in that so it doesn't get there with talk therapy and it doesn't necessarily stick with hypnotherapy. And I feel that that's why there's this movement now bringing together ayahuasca, like plant medicine or different plant medicines, plus some other forms of therapy, whether it's hypnotherapy or talk therapy or whatever it might be, because it's allowing to go deeper than those traditional methods that are being practiced.
Yeah. And also by working with ayahuasca, it allowed me to in a way learn from my own self rather than relying on
Mm.
the psychologists, the hypnotherapy, so like this and that, friends and family. It really gets you to sit with yourself so you don't have any external influences, which I think is what
Mm.
makes the biggest difference.
Yeah, it almost takes all those the noise away, right? Like it just takes away the external noise. Because I know I haven't done ayahuasca personally, but I have done rapé. And people ask me what it was like. And I just used to say to people, or still say to people, just turn the voices off in my head so I could get it sorted, because that's the biggest thing is so often our thought likes to overtake what our heart knows and what our gut knows. And it tries to trump it with, no, 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 let's use some ego and some logic and take over instead. But this is what our expectations are of what you should be doing, rather than this is how you show up in your truth and how you show up just as you are.
Yeah, and that's what psychedelics do. Like, doesn't matter which one you do, they all have different, I guess, intentions and connection with with you, with the earth. So yeah, they just remove all the unnecessary noise, and it gets you to. For me, it was a really somatic experience. So as you experience, you turn the voices of my head, and it connected me to my heart, my gut, which is where our intuition is held, and all our traumas as
Exactly.
well. So it allows you to see the trauma, to break through the trauma without making it a logical thing. And it still feels real. It still feels a real and deep experience.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel, there's so many other things now starting to tap more into that. I've had some really insane breathwork experiences, but, and it was just using the power of the breath and tapping again into that subconscious. But it's whatever way you feel comfortable with, because in the end, it's a journey about finding out who you really are, right? And who you are authentically. Once all the layers and beliefs and the noise is stripped away, what's left and what do you become from that?
Yeah. And that's what I've noticed when I came back after my psychedelic experience with ayahuasca. I have stopped doing things that I thought I was meant to do because other people
Mm.
were doing it. And I found my own way of doing things. For example, rituals like breath work, like you said, or meditation, or like compassionate practices. I've stopped doing what other people, told me to do, or what I thought I should be doing, and instead sat with myself long enough to find what works for me. So it's powerful. That's
That
why you're learning from yourself. You're not taking in wisdom from anyone else. And if you do, you have the awareness to stop and to
discern.
challenge that.
Yeah. and discern, right? That's the biggest thing. Like
Yeah,
use your own discernment to decide if that
right.
aligns with your truth or if it doesn't. Yeah. So this leads me into the question I had in my head. So once you came back, what happened? Did you leave personal training? Did you go into something else? What was your journey once you came back from this retreat and had to reintegrate into the matrix of society?
Yeah, that was the hardest part. Well, the first thing I did is I took an extra week off work just to resettle into my surroundings. And then when I actually came back to work, I used to do personal training in Melbourne. Um, like on the first day I stepped into the gym, I was thinking, what the hell am I doing here? It was that type of feeling. So I stepped in, it was 6 in the morning or even earlier, and it was all dark. There was techno music playing after being in the silence of the jungle for the last 4 weeks. And there were people, slamming weights all over the place and clients asking me millions of questions about my experience that I wasn't in a space to share because I was sensitive and I was protecting that experience because I knew that
Mm,
people couldn't relate if
mm,
they didn't work with psychedelics. It's really hard for someone to relate if they haven't worked with psychedelics. So I kept working for 2 3 weeks, and then I've asked the management to reduce my hours and to change the type of clients I was working with because I felt more aligned with that choice, and that was denied. So I was like, there's no point of keep going. And it was a mix
mm,
of the connection I had found with nature and animals and to myself that led me to stop working as a personal trainer. Also because I felt I had to put a mask on, meeting my
mm,
clients and always
mm,
being available 24/7. There was little time left for myself outside of the gym. And so I felt, sounds cliche, but burnt out. I didn't feel in the right place anymore. So I left without knowing what was next, but I knew that I had to leave Australia. So I started to travel. I was in Southeast Asia for a while, and eventually I came back to Italy, and I've settled back into my motherland. Yeah, without a timeline.
Sometimes, from someone that was in burnout myself, like running a company and like coming back from that, the hardest thing to do I found was not to overschedule myself and not to go back to the old habits, like you said, of working 24/7, where you actually haven't created time for yourself. And now I find that I can't do more than 2 or 3 clients a day. And that's kind of like my limit and it's not because I don't enjoy what I do, but it's also I want space for myself and I want to enjoy being a mum as well. Like I like spending time with my son. I don't want to be spending all my time with other people. And like you said, not having that timeline can sometimes be the most freeing and beautiful thing because you have the space and creativity to just have that energy to do whatever you need to do in that space.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with pursuing, dreams and on building, for example, communities or having a business and being all in. There's nothing wrong with it. However, if there's nothing left that you can, enjoy of your life apart
Mm,
from that, then I would challenge that belief that maybe you're not living in alignment. And it was the same thing for me. I was like in the gym from 6 in the morning to like 6 or 7 p.m. And like you go home, you have dinner and you go to bed and you repeat that cycle all over again. So
mhm,
working with ayahuasca and connecting with nature and seeing how much time we actually have if we just
mhm.
observe and if we just step back sometimes. And in that space, that's where creativity was born for me, and I found my way back to my most creative and joyful and authentic self. And now I'm trying to carry that knowledge into my life, which I think I'm embodying pretty well.
Yeah, and that's the true definition of living authentically, right? And living in your truth, because when you embody the wisdom that you've received and you actually are acting using your words, using your actions, and actually taking that wisdom and putting it into real life, that is truly when you're in alignment and living in your authentic self.
Yeah, and that's when truth comes, and that's why I've stopped using the word seeking truth, and now I see myself as a receiver of truth because
Mm,
I'm not forcing things anymore to find who I am. I'm just like stepping back, which doesn't mean to be passive. I'm just like keeping a bird's eye view of myself and my surroundings and let things come to me rather than always being hustling and hustling, which feels more natural, and it feels
Mm.
more abundant because you're actually experiencing different aspects of life with full presence.
Yeah, and I feel that that's such an important contrast, Cristiano, how you said it is being fully present and allowing, and when you touched on before earlier about time, time is such a construct that we've been taught. And you're so right. When you sit in nature, it almost feels timeless because you just lose track of it all. You're just being fully present in the moment. And if we could have more moments like that in our life, you actually realize how precious everything is around you too. And it's really easy to step into an attitude of gratitude. I like saying that,
Yeah.
an attitude of gratitude that allows you to just count the blessings, even when you're in the lowest points or when you're not feeling great, it just really allows you to go, okay, you know, I can see that I'm going to get through this. And for me now, when I'm in the tough spots, I'm like, this is going to be a story I'm going to share and live and share it with others so that they can be empowered too. And I feel you're very similar in that way, Cristiano, where you're like, I've been through all this stuff. I'm going to share it with people so they can be inspired to know they can change too.
Yeah, you start to see beyond, and you don't see just what's in front of you. You have a 360 view of what's unfolding before your eyes. Yeah,
Yeah.
connecting with nature and observing animals has been a huge practice of mine to create that space and to let creativity flow. And yeah, ground myself, connect with life force, which is where love also begins, for oneself or for others.
100%. And I think love is such an important thing. And people listening, we're not talking about the romantic lovey-dovey love that we get fed through TV. We're talking about like love that's just all understanding and compassionate and accepts you for however you're showing up that day, in your darkness, in your light, whatever it might be. You just need that balance and that love for your entire being. And that allows you to fully be authentic as well. Because so often there's this movement where it's like, oh, get rid of your shadows and like, no, you have to embrace your shadows. That's all part of you. Like, it's what makes you who you are. You can heal your wounds and your triggers, but they're still part of who you are and make up your story long term anyway.
Yeah, the kind of love that feels like a hug.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
as
love
you said
that.
it, you said it really well. It just allows you to embrace all the different aspects of yourself, not just the one that are easy to like. For example, when we are having a good day and we are happy and we are, connecting with people and we have no problems, but we know that eventually that day will finish and we wake up the next day and we hate ourselves because we ate an extra piece of cake, or I don't know, we don't like our hair, or we don't like our appearance. We don't have any clothes to wear. So we hate ourselves. But even those days, they are teaching us something. They are teaching that existence is a whole. It's not fragmented.
Mm.
So it is our responsibility to do our best to all gentleness and compassion, firstly towards ourselves and accepting all the traits that make up our human personality or human behaviors or thoughts and action, but at the same time without overly identifying as well. Because if we identify as a happy person, then when we have a bad day, then it's all confusional. And vice
Mm.
versa, when we're having a bad day, and we identify ourselves as a bad person, then everything becomes confusional again all over. Is it for me? Like also, ayahuasca taught me that not to identify with emotions, to let them come through, to sit with them, and to listen what they have to say, and let them guide me rather than enslave me or crumble me or put me in a box, like you said before.
Yeah. And it's so amazing when you do allow those emotions to come forth because emotions are really quick when you actually sit there and allow yourselves to feel them. They come up, you feel them, you express them however they need to be expressed, and then they leave your body. But when you don't allow that space for the emotions to come up, another guest taught me this, then it becomes a feeling, and that's the feeling becomes the problem because you never actually fully address the initial emotion that came up in the first place. And that's when it starts to embed in your body. Like an emotion is really quick, but when it turns, like when you don't address it and it turns into a feeling, that is when you start to get this build up. And like you said, this perception of like, I'm a bad person, I'm happy. And, I want to bring up the happy thing because everyone's in this pursuit of happiness. But in the end, it's what does that mean for you? Because happiness can be for me, it's actually feeling at peace every day and feeling like my true self. And it's not that bliss state that we kind of get associated with happiness. It's actually just being in authentic presence and going, okay, I'm here and I'm doing what I want to do that like I desire to do and that I choose to do and I love to do, and choosing those higher vibration of emotions instead of sitting in, like you said, a bad day. And sometimes, it's amazing when you get that perception. When you are having a bad day, you can actually pull yourself out of it a lot quicker and not let it dictate your whole day to you because you realize it is just a perception that you're having in that moment. Oh,
Um,
that's okay.
that's why is removing distraction and superficiality is also a vital practice, to remove ourselves from what family tells us to do. I think it's a big thing, or friends,
Yes.
especially with family. Sometimes it's hard to detach
Say no.
unlink ourselves from family, especially parents, because like we say one thing and they think millions of options of why that thing should go bad. And because they are seeing something we are not seeing. And that relates to what you said about switching the flow of the day when you're having a tough time. So
Mm.
remove yourself from that noise and really try to tune in what your body tells you to do, what's your intuition telling you to do, and what's your wisdom telling you to do. So that's the most essential thing.
Yeah, 100%. And especially when it's, like you said, family can be one of the hardest to say no to. And especially when you change how you show up in your family. And my background's Italian as well. So I get it so much, and it's just you show up to these gatherings and they don't actually know how to take you anymore because you're not the same person and you've changed and shifted. And they just think you're the crazy hippie or rebel or whatever, or, whatever. And it's really interesting when you get that contrast from them. But then, you actually almost teaching them in that moment, especially your parents, because when you show up and you keep showing up as yourself, they go, "Oh, it wasn't a phase." They're actually, this is who they are. And they start to
Yeah.
see you more and who you are. And you get these big healing moments start to happen. Like I've had some amazing ones with my dad where he's just shifted completely out of this stress controlling father figure, because I was the eldest daughter, and the eldest, to really like relaxed and chilled. And, his reactions are nowhere near what I thought they would be based on how he used to be. So this is the power even as children. And we can change, what's happening with our parents and our family and show up, as our authentic selves in our truth. And then they can't argue with it. Because when you're in your truth, no one can challenge you on it. They can,
Yeah.
but you just stand in your truth.
Yeah. The real thing is not to give in to them anymore. And I feel that
100%.
sometimes it becomes personal to them. Like it's almost like an attack to their parenthood in a way. I feel they take it
Yes.
that way, at least in my own experience. So when I left Australia and told my dad, "Hey, I'm leaving Australia and I don't know what's next." It was a crisis for him. Like he had no idea where I was, what I was doing. He was lost more than me. Like I didn't know where I was going, but I was fine. Like I knew that something would come to me because I live my life that way. I've been living my life ever since I emigrated in Australia in 2018, traveling and you know going to unknown places. I'm used to that. I'm getting used to that even more now. But for him, it was I was an alien. I was like like he
What
couldn't
have
he
you done
couldn't
with my son?
exactly. And yeah, coming back and seeing how family dynamics they are playing around differently now that I found my own way of showing up and expressing myself and transitioning to um, new professional endeavors or personal too. As your experience with your dad, they are noticing how the little shifts and they are joining me slowly. And
Exactly.
it is a healing for them because I feel they are thinking I should have done that too when I was young. And seeing me doing it is I think it's a moment of proudness, firstly, for them as parents, but they also see the authenticity in it and the impact that it's having on them.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's so when you can do it from a place of love too, and you're not really harsh and you're not judging them for how they brought you up, because otherwise you wouldn't be who you are right now, right? It's just like
Mm.
that's the contrast and that's the story. But at the same time, it's like, okay, that's my story. I've owned that now, and I'm going to actually let that go and just be who I want to be right now. And it is really nice when you can actually teach your parents something and they actually take it on board and accept it
Yeah,
as well. And I've learned so much with not just my family, but with friends and with clients and things. Sometimes it's about planting truth seeds as well, and, hey, did you notice this? Or, wouldn't it be nice if this? And this is the power of storytelling as well. And I know you're writing your book at the moment, but, it's all that storytelling that allows people to actually relate to it, because they're like, oh, that's what it looks like for them. Like, I kind of resonate with this and this and this. Maybe I can do that too. And that's the whole
yeah,
idea, right? We're just sparking empowerment in everybody.
yeah. It is hard with parents, especially hard with them, because when you plant the seeds, they still have the weed in their mind. That's the way I see it. Like, yeah, it's true. And it's not the child's responsibility to remove the weeds. It's their responsibility. So
Yeah.
sometimes it takes a long time for that, because there's weeds growing and there's new patterns growing at the same times, and they get confused.
Oh, and it's
That's
it's like a look too when it happens, and you could see like the new truth coming in and the old truth competing with it, and it's almost like this look like it's almost like their brain's going to explode because it's these two competing patterns. And I've seen
yeah,
it in people and like even my grandparents and things like that. And I'm like, wow, that their brain is really struggling to integrate the new truth or the new pattern, like you said, and then
yeah.
shift out the weeds so that they're not there anymore.
They go 2-3 weeks perfectly fine, like joining you, like, you know, being compassionate towards your new self, and then they fall back into old stuff. And then something happen, cracks in the shell, and they soften up, and then here we go again.
Exactly. Here we go again. Um, and I'm conscious we're starting to finish our time together. So, do you want to let people know what you're actually working on at the moment? Because I feel possibly be nearly ready by the time this comes out.
Yeah,
Is it a secret? Or
yeah,
can we share? We can share.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I can share. Yeah, it's fine. I am working on my first book, which is called Awakened by the Forest, and it is a memoir of ayahuasca and inner evolution, where I share about my experience with the plant medicine and how that relates to my childhood traumas and what I'm doing to break through them and to transition into a new phase of my life. And all that comes in between, all the details, little secrets of my life. So it's there's some humor in it as well. So I think it would make me absolutely happy if that can have a impact on people's life and be a source of inspiration.
Yeah.
And then also I have a couple of pages on Substack where I share about poems, dreams, oniric experiences, everything that comes in my mind that I want to write about: shadow, love, authenticity, personal experiences. I do that too.
Amazing. And a question I ask everyone that comes on the show, Cristiano, if you could heal or change something in the world, what would it be?
I'll tell you the most present thing in my life, just because it happened yesterday, so it's fresh. It is the stop wasting food,
Yeah.
because I was in the supermarket, and that's a way to heal the world too. I was at the supermarket, and it was such huge amounts of food, and I've asked, what do you do when nobody buys that? And they told me, oh, we just throw it away, and that
Mm,
broke my heart a little bit.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that's such a interesting perspective too, because, so often too, the things in the supermarket, I think they did this study and I think 95% or 90% of the supermarket is processed food or something like food you shouldn't eat anyway. And it's not about what you should and shouldn't do, but it's, when you look at the percent, when you just walk into a supermarket and you look what percentage is fresh fruit and vegetables and fresh meat and versus the rest of all the things. It's really interesting to have that
Yeah.
contrast. And yeah, exactly. And even like the whole perfect fruit, like we've been trying to teach my son that, just because there's a blemish on the fruit or there's a mark or there's an indent doesn't mean that the fruit or the vegetable is not good to eat, because we're trying to grow more of our own food. And we're like, you've just been conditioned to think that an apple should be like perfect where it shouldn't. And then when you look at how much of that, that crop, because even like they get hail damage, and then they have to go juice most of it, because apparently that little dent on it means it's not available to go to the supermarket. So it's really, that's even before we get to the supermarket, and then they throw out all the food that gets, that it gets expired and things like that. So
Well, most of the time, the processed food, it's the one that lasts longer. So all that gets thrown away. It's actually the fresh one, fresh vegetable, fruits, or like fresh products, which is such a shame. It's destroying the planet slowly, and yeah, nobody's doing anything about it.
no, well, I guess this is where it's like, do we encourage people to go back and start to grow their own food and really connect with Mother Nature that way, so you're just really aware of actually how much effort it takes to grow food. I know for us, we've learned very much
Yeah,
how much it takes. Yeah.
it's a
And
tough.
what's your yeah, exactly. And Cristiano, what is your Substack? I'll put it in the show notes as well. But if people want to come follow you or on Instagram, where can they find you?
So my Substack, the first page is called the Hybrid Soul Blog, and the second page is called Oniric Lives. And yeah, I'm also on Instagram, where I share book updates and poetry, or like inspiring short story.
Beautiful. I'll make sure to have that in the show notes so everyone can come and follow you on Substack or on Instagram. And when your book comes out, and they can be the first one to get it. So perfect. And thank you so much for sharing your journey, Cristiano, and your insights into stepping back into life after ayahuasca and learning to receive your truth.
Thank you so much, Catherine. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Hey.
Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.